In 2017, CMS introduced the regional adjustment into the Medicare Shared Savings Program. The regional adjustment is a simple adjustment that pushes your benchmark up or down based on your regional efficiency. So if you are cheaper than your region, if you are a regionally efficient ACO, then you're actually going to have your benchmark moved up, which gives you a tailwind, helps you achieve savings a little bit easier. And if you are regionally inefficient, so you cost more than your region, you actually are going to have your benchmark adjusted down, which makes it a little harder to achieve savings. Now, this kind of blending of a regional benchmark and a historical benchmark are interesting. So there's kind of these two benchmarking approaches. MSSP was a historical only benchmark prior to 2017. And that means, like we've said in past videos, that you're comparing against yourself at different time points. Now, one of the challenges that we've talked about with that is the ratchet effect, or what happens when you rebase and you're pushed down. Well, regional benchmarking, it doesn't suffer from that same ratcheting effect. It can, but it's a little bit different. But it has a selection bias. So regional benchmarking is we take the price of your region and we set that as your benchmark. Well, naturally, if you're going to achieve savings based on where your region is, then it's going to naturally attract those that are already cheaper. And it's going to disincentivize those that are a little more expensive. So that's a really important thing to understand. And in the 2024 rules, some of the stuff is being addressed. And I think there's kind of a continual effort to tweak the MSSP rules to try to kind of hit that sweet spot in the middle of accepting some of the challenges of these benchmarking approaches and kind of offsetting them. So how does CMS actually do this adjustment? Well, the calculation is actually pretty simple. So here we're going to start with a risk-adjusted regional expenditure. So we take all your counties that make up your region and we figure out an overall price for those. We're going to multiply that by the risk scores in your ACO. So we're going to express the dollars from your region in the risk that you have. So that's done and using your BY3 HCC scores. Next, you have your regional expenditures that are expressed in the ACO risk. Then we're going to just compare that to your historical benchmark. So now we are comparing your region to your historical. And this is all done at the entitlement group level. So you're going to get four differences. And then we're going to weight those based on the proportion of beneficiaries in each entitlement group. So that's done here. Again, this is using BY3 beneficiaries. And so we weight those based on the proportion, and then we sum up those differences. Now, if the sum of those is positive, you're going to receive a positive regional adjustment. So if the sum of those are positive, you were cheaper than your region on average. And if the sum is negative, you were more expensive. And so your benchmark is going to be adjusted down. Now, CMS has decided to do this kind of on a rolling schedule so that in your first agreement period, you don't get as much benefit from having a regionally efficient provider. So that you don't get just a huge benefit from going out and recruiting the right set. You get a bigger benefit in the next agreement period and on, because you've taken your providers and either made them very regional efficient, or you've at least kept them regionally efficient, both of which are successes. And so you get a bit more of a bump in subsequent agreement periods. On the negative side, you're not held that accountable in that first agreement period because you're only multiplied by 15%. But it does grow, and eventually, if you have not gotten to the point of regional efficiency after several agreement periods, then you're going to be held pretty accountable for the fact that you are still regionally inefficient. So there's a big push to kind of move that down. Now, down here, this is important. All of this is capped, both positive and negative, at 5%. And so 5% of the national PMPY. So you can never get a bigger bump than 5%, and you can never take a bigger hit than that 5%. Now, there is a rule change here, and we'll go into that more in another video, but just a sneak peek. they are changing the negative side to negative 1.5 instead of 5. So that cap is actually shrinking quite a bit, which will limit the risk of joining into the ACO program if you have higher cost providers. This is kind of an incentive or removing a disincentive, really, for less regionally efficient providers to join into the program. So now that we've multiplied our differences by these weights based on your agreement period, then that gives us our regional adjustment, and we simply add that to the historical benchmark, and that gives us our regionally adjusted historical benchmark. Thank you for joining us for this video, and we hope to see you in future ones.